Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ktor Server Fundamentals playlist. In the last video, we covered barrier authentication in Ktor. In this video, we will dive into session authentication in Ktor. Let's begin by understanding what session authentication is. Session-based authentication is a stateful authentication technique where we use sessions to keep track of authenticated users. Sessions basically provide a mechanism to persist data between different HTTP requests. The way session authentications work is simple. First, the user logs in by entering their credentials. If the credentials are correct, the server creates session for the user. Next, this session is saved in a cookie. Now, when clients make another request, the session is included, allowing the server to recognize the user without needing to log in again. And finally, the server validates the session. If it's still active and hasn't expired, access is granted. If not, the user is redirected to log in again. Next, we will configure the cookie and session authentication plugin. Then we will set up login, sign up, logout, and a protected GET request for complete understanding of session authentication flow. Now, let's start by adding the necessary dependency. First, let's head over to the version catalog file within this Gradle package and let's duplicate this line and add Ktor server sessions. Here as well, Ktor server sessions. And if you are following along the previous authentication videos, then you might already have this Ktor server auth module. We'll need this Ktor server auth and Ktor server sessions for this video. Now let's head over to the build Gradle file, and over here we can duplicate this line and simply say Ktor server sessions. We'll need these two dependency, Ktor server auth and Ktor server sessions. So simply sync the project. Now let's move to this plugins package and configure our sessions. So for that, let's create a file named sessions. Within this file, let's create an extension function configure sessions. Now to install the sessions, we can use install function and pass the sessions. For session-based authentication, we need to store session data in a cookie. So for that, we can use cookie function. Now, to specify our session type, we can create a data class user session and we can create a property user name of type string. Now, we can specify this user session as a session type. Now, we need to mark this as a serializable as well. Also, let's set the name as user session. So, our cookie will be set against this user session key. By default, this session is valid for the current route, but we can specify the path as well. We can say something like cookie dot path equals, and we can specify the route path, making it effective for all the routes. We can also specify something like /API or /admin, so it will be effective for only the route that begins with this path admin. For now, we have the route path. Also, we can set the max age in seconds. So this will ensure that our cookie will be expired after this second. So by setting it to 300 seconds, our cookie will be expired after 5 minutes even if user doesn't logs out. You can have the value based on your preference and requirements. So that's it for this configure sessions part. Now let's configure session authentication plugin. So for that, we can move to this plugins package and create new Kotlin file and named session authentication. Within this file, we can create a new extension function. Let's name it application.configure session authentication. Now, to install the authentication plugin, we can simply use the install function and pass in authentication. For the session authentication, we can use the sessions functions. So, we can simply use this function and pass our session type, which is user session. Also specify a name, session auth. Using this name, we will refer to this auth in our routing. Now, for the validation, we can use this validate. We get access to the session. If you want to perform any validation, you can perform over here. But since we will be validating user in both login and sign up, so I will simply return the session without any further operation within this validate. In case session has already expired or invalid, we can handle that case within this challenge function. Over here, we can simply respond with unauthorized call.respond text, and we can say unauthorized, please log in. And for status, we can simply say http status dot unauthorized. Here we can perform the validation logic, and within this we can have the handling for the case when the session has expired or is invalid. We can call these two functions within the application module function. So over here we can first comment this barrier authentication that we had configured in the last video, and we can simply say configure sessions and also configure sessions authentication. So we'll call these two functions. Let's move to the routing file and let's define some authentication routes. So let's begin with defining the route for sign up. So we can pass the path sign up. Now within the sign up and login route, we will be receiving both username and password from the request body. So to represent that, let's create a data class with name auth request. Within this data class, let's have username of type string and password of type string. We'll also need to mark it as a serializable. Now within this sign up route, we can refer to the request body using request data equals call dot receive, and we can specify the type as auth request. Now to store all the users that we create using this sign up route, we will be creating a in memory map. So let's say users db equals mutable map of type both key and value both as string. Now in real world scenario, this will be your SQL or NoSQL database. We can add a check. In case if user is already within the database, we won't allow creating user for same username. So we can simply respond a text. So we can say if users db contains key, request that username. The username passed through the request body is within the users db. In that case, we can respond with call dot respond text, and we can say user already exists. Else, what we can say, we can simply insert the user with this username. So we can say users db, and we can simply pass the username as a key, and value will be request data dot password. So this key will be inserted with the value of password. After adding this user to our database, we can set the session call dot sessions dot set. Our session type is user session. we can say user session, and within this we can pass the username. So request data dot username. So this will set the cookie. We can simply respond with the text user sign up success. So after inserting the user as well as setting the cookie, we will simply respond with success message. That should be it for sign up. We can simply copy this since our login logic will also be somewhat similar. Path will be login. We'll be receiving both username and password this way. In case of login, we'll be comparing the password. So we can say stored password equals users db. We can get the password for the username passed from this request body. In case this is null, it will simply mean that user is not within this database. In that case, we can return and respond with call dot respond text user does not exist. We can compare this stored password with the one that has been passed within the request body. So we can say stored password equals to request data dot password. If password matches, the password within the request body matches to the one stored in our database, we can simply set the session. So we can simply say call dot session dot set and user session, and the value will be request data dot username. Also, we can respond with text login success. In else case, we can simply respond with text call dot respond text invalid credentials. If password matches, we are setting the session returning the success message. Else we are returning the invalid credentials message. We can get rid of this. Now for logout, let's create a post request and specify path as logout. Within logout, we simply need to clear the session. So for that, we can use call dot session dot clear and specify the session type, which is in our case user sessions. And after clearing session, we can simply respond with text stating logout success. So within our logout, we first cleared the user session, then simply responded with a text. Within this authenticate, we'll need to change this configuration name. So we will say session. Since for our session auth, we have the name session auth. So we are using the same name over here. And to access the username, we can simply use the session, user session, call dot principal user session, and we can specify username. We make this request as a protected. So unless user is logged in, they won't be able to access this route. Now let's run our application. Let's try to access the protected route. As you can notice, we get unauthorized, please log in. So now let's try to log in. Within this body, we can use raw and JSON. So let's try to enter the username admin, and for password, let's use 123. And if you send, currently we get this not found instead of this message. So we can wrap within a single line the written statement in a single line. Now if we run our application again, and in case of user not existing in our database, we get user doesn't exist. We can first try to sign up. Instead of login, we can sign up to create this user. So now as you can see, user sign up success. And if you check the cookies, you can notice this user sessions. So if we try to access the protected route again, we get to see the hello admin. Even if we remove this, we still be able to access this username since our cookie has been set. Until it expires or we log out, we will be able to access this protected route. We can also try to log out. If we hit this, as you can notice, our cookie has been cleared. So we won't be able to access the protected route. So it says unauthorized, please log in. Now we can try to log in again. So you can see login success and cookies has been set again. So it is working as expected. So that should be it for this video. In the next video, we will be covering JWT authentication in detail. So until then, thanks for watching and happy coding.